Our next session is presented by Accenture. Please welcome Senior Managing Director, Supply Chain and Procurement Leader, Mr. Jorge Corral.
Good afternoon and saludos to everyone in our global high-tech audience. I'm Jorge Corral and I live in Dallas, Texas, the proud son of Mexican immigrants. I'm a Senior Managing Director at Accenture where I lead the Dallas office, and I also get a chance every day to work with clients on transforming their supply chains. So a couple of years ago now, I was really honored to receive recognition by High-Tech as a High-Tech 100 recipient. And today I'm very excited to host a distinguished panel of technology leaders. Today, you'll get a chance to hear our impressive guests share their insights on digital transformation and on what technology trends will disrupt the future of business. I'm going to hand the mic to each of them to introduce themselves, and then we'll move into our panel discussion. Marieli, why don't we start with you, and then we'll go to Carlos and then David.
Thank you, Jorge. Marieli Bandas Francetti. I am a Vice President in Dell Digital, and really very honored and proud to help the teams really transform a lot of technology across many areas of our business. I am a Boricua, and born and raised in Puerto Rico, and I live right now in Austin, Texas. And it's been a lot of years here, more years in Texas than in Puerto Rico, but I'm very excited that soon I'm going to be visiting my family, which is way overdue. So thank you for having us here.
Hi, my name is Carlos Gonzalez. I'm the Vice President for Cloud Partners at Trend Micro. It's a security firm from Puerto Rico. So there you go, Marieli, another Puerto Rican over here on the board. I've been working with technology and security for the last 20 plus years. Very excited about this panel and all the interactions and all the ideas that are going to come up out of it.
Hello, everyone. David Olivencia. I'm a managing director at Accenture in our Chicago office. I'm also the very proud co-founder of High-Tech roughly 14 years ago or so. And it's been amazing to watch the growth and the amount of lives that we have touched and the amount of fun we have. All my family is from Puerto Rico, and my wife, I was just mentioning with the panel earlier, my wife's from Medellin, Colombia, where I'll be flying to tomorrow in these interesting times. So look forward to this panel.
Very good, thank you. So let's get started. For our first question, over the last year, the pandemic changed the way we worked and lived. We all went 100% virtual from one day to the next. And the pandemic presented significant challenges for businesses, navigating financial and operational challenges while at the same time needing to rapidly address technology changes, including supporting digital business needs. Marieli, for our first question, I know Dell is doing some impressive things in technology and services. How would you say that enterprises across industries have accelerated their digital transformation?
Sure, Jorge. I have to say, after listening to Paul's session earlier today, it kind of like took me a little bit back of the things that Dell has done for many, many years, investments. And, sometimes we take those for granted, but really were the foundation to really help accelerate our customers and our employees in what this pandemic was going to face, and make us face. And recognizing that, we had to mix our home and work environments, it definitely make us more looks like humans, like he was mentioning earlier. And we always had a culture of very much empowering connected, workforce. And that flexibility really accelerated and helped us accelerate, our customers tremendously, as many of us needed to play numerous roles, right? From parents, teachers, caregivers, across that. So it took me back and it made me just realize a few months ago, we still have our team members battling the same challenges of last year. Many of our global footprint in India and Brazil and many of our Latin America countries is still, struggling. And this capability of staying connected and the flexibility of the workforce and how we just ensure that our employee base is safe, but it also have all the tools that they need that normally they did at work. I had to say it was very foundational to help us accelerate. And those investments were many years. It was a culture of probably 10 years of establishing that, and now 5x accelerated. So And we will get to talk more about many of the services that we are doing, but we just have to recognize that that investment of connected workforce is here to stay.
Thank you, Marieli. David, I know that you spend a lot of time on the topic. How would you say that enterprises across industries are accelerating their move to digital?
Yeah, it's an exciting and interesting times. And Satya Nadella of Microsoft said there was like 2 years. By the way, a great partner of high tech said, and there's 2 years of digital transformation occurred in 2 months, right? And that was roughly what a year ago. And you saw a big move to impact and adapt with the customer experience and the digital experiences, whether it was kind of the retail or restaurants and the move to curbside and how they shifted and pivoted, or the banking industry, how they kind of in a very agile way went to the PPP loans and servicing them. And supply chains, your area, Jorge, right? How they had to adapt, contract, and move, to better support their customers and business in this environment. But there was also this overlying theme about being agile and flexible, and what are the capabilities. And some businesses, and if you listen to my panel, maybe, I don't know, a year and a half ago, I said, if your business is not in the cloud, it will be in the ground. And I was hoping that maybe some more of the companies that listened to me back then think they might be in a better position. But those who adapted cloud and who adopted cloud and went digital were in a much better position to shift, to be more agile when revenues tank, to leverage that elasticity and lower cost. And I think coming out of this, right, those who made that digital journey, or who are on it or made it, I think are in a much stronger position. Those who did not, it's not that they're out of the game, but they're now having to reinvest and invest more to catch up. And so I think you're going to see just continuous digital investment to stay ahead and compete. And it's not slowing down. It's not slowing. I mean, I think everybody heard Paul. These trends and these things are not slowing down. So it'll be important, to invest wisely, and if you can, be in the cloud. It'll help you get there faster.
Davey, I want to hashtag that. What is that? You need to be on the cloud, or you're going to be?
Yeah, in the ground. You guys can tweet it, post it, whatever. If your business is not in the cloud, it will be in the ground. That was a year and a half ago. I still stand by that.
Spot on.
That's awesome. Thank you. So our next question, we'll move on a similar theme. So the disruption in the last year exposed the limitations of longstanding norms for how companies operate and how people live. The question for the panel is, what critical technologies should companies be paying attention to? And what are the most important technologies that we need to be aware of? Carlos, let's start with you.
Thank you. Wow, that's an incredible question, because coming from the security world, obviously security is a key and critical component of anything that we're going to do moving forward in regards to technology that is going to be implemented. But if we're looking at digital safety, AKA security, we're looking at, while the global connectivity opens up the door for further, reaching opportunities, but it also obviously poses greater risk. Okay, and with the risk, obviously, that's where that cyber criminal enterprise move into place. As the professional network engages in those events, that it happens to be yielding greater consequences. So as a result, organizations, for me, obviously, will need to become more adaptable. As connectivity increases, anticipating those potential challenges, it's creating solutions in advance. And I think that David made a great point, obviously talking about, this pandemic that we're in at the present time, and how the world has changed over a period of a year, and where security has become so important to provide, that level of security, of transparency, of support to those technologies. So when we're looking at technologies in addition to security that are looking to disrupt this market, I see a few of those. And obviously the first one that I see is 5G networks. So 5G networks, if we're looking, what is the objective of 5G? So 5G, the whole point is to simplify the user experience, right? And the user experience starts with trust. So, from whether it is voice or video or bandwidth, it's or easily to adopt artificial intelligence. The 5G technology becomes a disruptor of what we're trying to do. Now, in addition to that, we see things like machine learning. We're looking at virtual reality, telehealth, which has been very important throughout this period of time, especially during the pandemic. I mean, I recall, I was trying to do my physical with my doctor, and the first question that she asked me was like, "Have you been tested? Would you rather do a Zoom session?" So you're looking at telehealth as being also another technology that is going to be a big, big disruptor. Obviously, coming from the security standpoint as well, and looking at computing capability and power, you see quantum computing also as another potential disruptor as organizations continue to move into the IoT market. Those are the technologies that I see at the present time that might be disrupting, and how do we need to attack them?
Thank you. That's a lot to think about, Carlos. Marieli, what would you share?
Similar to Carlos, I had to say what I like so much more. It's like seeing many technologies now working together. And Paul also said that in his keynote speaker about if this pandemic happened 5 years ago, the impact was going to be catastrophic, because we were talking about so many technologies for a while, but they were all in silos. They were not really yet mature to the scale that we needed to take them. And before I go through the ones that I want to mention, I think one that we need to pay a lot of attention, and I think is the common thread that runs through all the technologies, is our data. And I say it's doesn't matter if you're producing the data, you're consuming, enriching, whatever insights you're getting from the data, that's what's basically the ecosystem that we're going to need to pay attention for it, because it's what is really accelerating our progress. And right now, of course, the data is going to be as good as how you can utilize it. And that's why before, when we talk about a lot of the technology trends from the past about artificial intelligence being with us for a long time, but now we have an abundance of data that we are able to train much better. And as we go to the compute power, I will say AI, of course, number one. Number two, the hybrid clouds really gave a whole platform of flexibility for the companies to really connect multiple challenges that they had in their infrastructure. And I will say personally at Dell, we were not doing all the investments that we wanted internally to keep things in prem. So you needed to work hybrid clouds to really make the AI potential and be able to manage these workloads of data that you wanted to do. And Carlos, what you mentioned, then you add the edge and 5G, and that really on top of the hybrid cloud. Now you're talking about the telemetry that is coming from the edge, the amount of sensors and amount of data. And I think it was fascinating. I think it was IDC was mentioning that by 2025, it's going to be 175 zettabytes of data. And 30% of that data needs to be processed real time. And 50% suppose is going to be created and processed at the edge. So now that's when 5G and the telecom industry really help us really cloudify a lot of the challenges that we had in that space. And then I say why everything works together better now is when you have software-defined infrastructure in top of that. That really help us, tremendously, have programmable, configurable, and adaptable infrastructure that we can treat like software. And I'll wrap around with workforce modernization. I think that's something that really, back to the examples that David, you were mentioning, we're so used to everything come to us, the UX, CX experience that we get for everything, groceries, healthcare, everything is what we need to have as the kind of like the number one reality that we need to modernize across the technology. So I have to say, as IT professional, it's just awesome to see that the things that before were buzzwords is a reality, and they're working together, and they all help us scale us together. So that's kind of like the five that I wanted to call out. And of course, I'm against with a security guy, everything with security, Carlos. Nothing worked without that. I will have to say, the world have taught us that I think I would spend more time talking about security than ever.
Thank you both. You know, I think a lot of the people listening to us in the audience today can totally relate to the importance of cloud, edge, 5G, data, security, adaptable infrastructure, workforce transformation, all of those things that you just talked about. So really important. Thank you for sharing that. Before we go to question 3, I want to open it up to the audience. We are hopefully going to have time at the end of this to answer kind of off the cuff questions you might offer. So please put it in the chat box if you have any questions for this esteemed guests, the panelists that we have. And with that, let's move to question 3. And I'm going to put people on the spot a little bit. So let's pivot to hear more about your organizations a bit more. David, we're going to start with you. Let's start with you on what differentiates your organization's view on the future technology trends from other organizations.
Yeah, we have an interesting and a unique, I think, point of view as it relates to the future and technologies and how they're impacting. And we take data from a lot of different sources that I'll walk through and kind of shape our opinion and perspective. And Paul Doherty talked about our Vision 2020 that we've been doing the last roughly 20 years or so. But there's a couple different points that I talk about. One is we have kind of an innovation architecture that has a couple components in it. The first is the venture capital community that we have relationships with, and we have our own Accenture Ventures as well that kind of sees what's coming out there, the early disruptors that are hitting, and it gives us a kind of a view into that space. We have our own Accenture Research, right, which does research on the latest trends that we see and pulls that together and has relationships with research universities around the world. We have Accenture Labs, which then can take in a very agile way, pilot some of these things, scale them, test them, get them ready to see if some of these technology and these things are future proof. The other, I'd say, now, and as you move, then we have our ecosystem, and many of the high-tech sponsors are part of our ecosystem partners, right? The Microsoft, Amazon, Dell, Cisco. All of them, we have great partnerships with them, and we work and partner with them to understand, well, where are you going in the next 5-10 years? Where are you placing big investments? And some of these partners are spending billions and billions of dollars in research and what's out there. We then have our clients, the global client base that we then validate it with. We get data from CEOs and CXOs that survey them, which I think gives a rich perspective across all of that. And then in the end, we're actually living it ourselves, right? So we can take all that, and whether it's Accenture ourselves globally, how we use that and live it. So all of that together kind of helps us then put out an annual vision statement that we share with our clients. We collaborate with our clients and help them kind of give thought leadership to them.
Thank you, David. Marieli, let's hear from you on differentiation.
When I think about what I mentioned before about data, Dell in particular grew as a direct model, right? We have very strong direct customer relationship. And when you look how everything is going to be evolving from the infrastructure, the edge location, the data centers of the future, and the offers that we need to come up as a service in particular, we have all that portfolio. Customers need that choice and everything from planning, deploying, consume, and manage is a world that is evolving at everything as a service. And we got a very clear message that IT priorities and budgets, were challenged, right, through this pandemic, and cloud, back to David, your point, if you haven't modernized and as a service experience, have set up the new expectation of how simple IT can and should be. And organizations need to really drive that control and give the customer the choice. And that's why the choice are part of, the investments that we are continue pushing at Dell. You guys will hear a lot about as a service under Project Apex, but it's back to that. We have to give the choice to the customers, and we are in the business of helping them. With all the services that it takes from managing, deploying, consuming, consulting, and education services as well, and even the whole take back recycling, because back to sustainability is the entire life cycle that we need to offer to our customers, and it's part of our core goals of the company.
Wow, it's great to hear how Accenture as well as Dell are investing in the future and on technology. So thank you for that. The question number 4, we're going to move to Carlos. Carlos, let's move to a different type of question. Can you share your perspective on how enterprises can react to take advantage of some of the trends we just heard about in the previous questions?
Well, if I put it into context and I summarize those trends, I think that, as I mentioned before, we see transparency with a focus on accountability, right? Because what we have learned over the last year is, that accountability, where things are, how can I make sure that what I'm doing is the right thing and what I'm doing is the correct thing and is safe, right? Connectivity, it's also one of the things that I see as part of this summary. And the way that connectivity works out is that as people continue to work at home, connectivity becomes even more important. It's no longer you walk into the next person's office and say, hey, look, Joe, I need to talk to you right now. No, right now, depending on Zoom or depending on the cell phone. So, going back into that 5G networks, it makes more sense when you're looking into how do we, can take advantage of this. And then automation. I think that what you're seeing now and what you're going to see over the next decade, obviously, is future developments that will increase resiliency across the industries, right? Whether it is, in the healthcare organization or financial, we're going to see more and more technological improvements over that period of time, because, as we all know, technology continues to evolve, and as it continues to evolve, our job is to go ahead and making sure that we have that availability, that we have that safety, and that we have that connectivity that our customers are looking for.
Thank you. Earlier, Accenture CTO Paul Daugherty presented some new realities and how technology is more top of mind for business leaders than ever. So for our next question, what are the major challenges you're seeing clients face, and how are they reacting to a world where technology is now their lifeline? David?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm a technology person at heart. I love technology, but I think the one thing that I see a lot of them struggling with right now, it's in this area of leadership, talent, and culture. Because you can have great technologies and do all the great things and implement all the great things that Carlos talked about, but it's about change, right? So you're putting change into the system, you're putting change into the supply chain, rolling out new technologies, training, finding talent in what is becoming now another war for talent. So I think that's kind of one side of it. Then on the other side of it, I think it's this, I just call it the sense, moving with a sense of urgency. Disruption is happening at a faster pace. Value creation continues to happen at a faster pace. And on one side, I think the traditional, bigger Fortune 1000 companies that are listening, right? You're getting, there's competition on both sides. There's the kind of the traditional big competitors that you have who are doubling and tripling down on digital to better compete. But you're seeing a massive wave of early stage entrants that are almost, I want to say infinitely funded, but they're getting a lot of money with the right idea to rapidly kind of come up very fast and disrupting from both sides. So I think, this sense of urgency, I think, is the kind of the second area where I think companies need to really start, kind of up their sense of urgency to take on change and move, or you're going to get disrupted.
Thank you, David. Carlos.
Again, speaking from the cybersecurity side, visibility, right? I think those are some of the major challenges that we continue to see. And when I spend a lot of time with CTOs or CIOs, or even talking, obviously, to the CFOs, which have a lot of input into the security aspect, right? Because of the financial issues, we see visibility as a key way to continue to go on with this digital transformation. The other big challenge that we see is understanding the shared responsibility, right? So us as users, right, we think, well, it's in the cloud, it's safe, not a problem, right? No, it's not the way that it works. There's a shared responsibility that we all need to understand, that we are as responsible just like an Amazon or an Azure or Google can be, right? So I think that the shared responsibility, the visibility of having and knowing and understanding where that data is, how am I interacting with my my partner, my end user or customer, and how can I prevent, right, the bad things to happen. We're going to continue to see that moving along, this whole digital transformation, and obviously part of the growth of their businesses.
Thank you, Carlos. So we're going to start transitioning to audience questions. We've had quite a few on a whole lot of different topics, so I'm going to do my best to pick a few. We're going to start with one that's about the broader economy. So we talk a lot, and a lot of us work for big companies. And so when we talk about business, a lot of times we're really referring to bigger businesses. But the economy is made up of small, medium, and large-sized businesses. And the pandemic and technology is impacting them in different ways. So what are some of the differences between large and smaller companies as it relates to culture change and technology innovation? And Marieli, maybe I'll hand this one to you to answer for us.
Sure. Look, if I go back to large companies or small companies, some of the challenges are common in terms of no matter how much budgets you have, you still need to prioritize. It's always make sure that you're investing and prioritizing correctly. And you had to be agile and revisit those as well. But one thing that I will say, I miss the days that Dell was smaller, or also I miss the days that you're not dragging so much legacy ecosystems as you're growing and not driving that standardization and that globalization so early on. That is a huge complex environment that big companies have to deal and a lot of the security aspect are in a lot of those legacy environments. Of course, the modern environments have exposure, but right now when I look at smaller companies and how easy it is to implement technology and how faster they can scale with the modernized platforms that we have, it's a huge advantage that they have even over some of the big companies, that there's a lot of budget and a lot of funding that still needs to go to maintain legacy applications and figure out how to retire them. So it is just, there is a pros and cons in everything in life, but I will say that the smaller companies have a great advantage on really embracing the technology and the agility that for them to scale.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to pick a couple new questions. We're going to start with one that's a similar theme to what you just hit on, Marieli, on security. So one of the questions that's come up, and there's been a few questions on security. I think we've all heard the news recently on ransomware. It's a very hot topic in the news with a lot of ramifications. So there's a couple of questions on that. Let me boil it down to one. So do you see the need for additional and different security methods than what we've seen in the past, including, I think somebody referenced in here, behavioral biometrics? What do you all think about that? Carlos, maybe we'll start with you.
I was going to say, if I can take a first shot out of it. Again, technology continues to evolve, right? And one of the things that we're doing at Trend Micro is, with our different teams of Zero Trust initiatives or the Trend Research Labs, we continue to see and trying to work on ways to obviously provide the best service and the best protection available. The behavioral side of it, yes, absolutely. That's one of the areas that we see a lot of it coming along with some of the actors that we see in the cyber criminal space. And for those things, obviously, we're creating additional platforms that can provide some level of protection. But a lot of the times it also comes as part of us, right? As users, how do we manage those things? So within our platforms, we try to provide our customers with a service platform that can obviously give you different portions of the security for the different aspect of your organization. But definitely, I think that on the behavioral side, security is going to become more and more prevalent and more important as time goes.
David or Marieli, do you want to share anything?
Go ahead, Maria.
Go ahead, David.
No, please.
I would say they get better and better and better. I when you say that, I had a flashback about how even my husband got a call and from the bank, and the number was the number that he had saved in his phone. So security, just everything is going to need to be looked at, and even how we interact with the machines, and there's this terrible story, I shouldn't say it, but there's a technology that they were looking at for using your fingerprints to access things. Well, guess what? They now need to enhance that there's blood flow going out to make sure that it's attached to the person. So it's a new world that we are living, and it's a never-ending battle that we're going to continue need to drive numerous innovations.
Very good.
Yeah, my point is like, I did a LinkedIn post, like phishing complaints are going up exponentially. Breaches are still continue to go up. Ransomware is going, so all the trends are going this way, right? And we've been talking about security many years, right? And it's not slowing down. And I think as you get more Internet of Things, more devices out there, higher artificial intelligence, edge, it's not going to slow down. So get ready, it's coming.
I know it is. It's really interesting, but also kind of scary time right now with respect to security. And I think I know my clients face it. We hear about it in the news, et cetera. So thank you for sharing a really important topic. So we're going to change gears completely for a different type of question. It's going to maybe test a little bit on philosophy, perspective, change, et cetera. And it's about the readiness, society's readiness for information overflow. So what's your opinion about people and society's readiness versus I'm reading this directly, versus the technology readiness to consume the high volumes of data that are being generated every day?
I am not ready to consume all that data. I keep complaining that how many social platforms we need to have in the company too. So no, I think it's overwhelming. That is something that even internally I always say, hey, how many channels are we going to have to communicate? Especially with the groups that especially when you're managing production and many. But no, it's a really good question, and I think it's something that will be there as a problem for us to live with, and you're going to need to figure out that balance. But it's absolutely there. There's the technology, there's a human aspect, and I don't know how many of you guys have kids, but you just see how they manage those much better than some other generations like mine. So.
Yeah, I see that as part of the new human skills, right? As we continue to learn and trying to adapt to the new world. Obviously, there's technology that will be available to help you manage and prioritize all that information, all that data that continues to come. But the reality is that us as individuals, we need to continue that development on our human skills in order to provide and to understand and to prioritize that information. And obviously the use of the technology that is being evolved and emerging, and not only now, I mean, over the next few years, this decade, now with the transformation that we have seen on a world that changed overnight, it's going to be more important for us to really understand what do we need to pay attention to, right? Because it is a different world, it is a different set of circumstances, and it's a different set of data that you're receiving. So that's, I would say that part of that growth in I call it human skills, will be there. But just like Paul said this morning, the 4 new realities, that human experience, that we need to learn now, and not even really learn, is to continue to work on the travel and learning, on working, on, interacting with each other. Those are things that, technology will be involved at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I think on one side, it's just amazing how easy it is to now create content, right? Whether it's streaming video, podcasts, websites, artificial intelligence, things that are just hitting us constantly, and that's only growing exponentially, right? I think as leaders, right, I think it comes down to how do we reflect on our priorities, our life, our goals, spend that quiet time and look at how we're managing each day, each week, and are we optimizing our time, right, wisely amongst everything, right? And I think as part of high tech, right? I mean, we want to be the best leaders out there. I think that's the key, because the question was right. It's not slowing down, but we have to be smarter in how we either leverage technology to manage it or how we better manage our time. And that's something that's always an art that we all need to continuously enhance.
Yeah, thank you. It's a topic I know I feel just like you all feel every day. For me, sometimes it's also the other end of it. It's like, what am I missing out on? Like, I see all of this information, I can't absorb all of it. At the same time, there's stuff going on, and I'm like, well, maybe I'm missing out on something important. So it's something that I think we're all managing through. So we're going to go a little bit, maybe a little bit back in time, a little bit for some of you. I know that a lot of businesses out there are working on legacy infrastructure, a lot of old technology. So even though we're talking about a lot of new concepts, new technology, at the same time, we have companies with mainframes. So that's what our next question is about. What are your thoughts on how the mainframe will continue to be a big player in the tech and cloud? Because 71% of Fortune 500 companies use the mainframe. And though it's old tech, and some companies are looking to get off of them, it's beginning to modernize itself in the last few years. Any thoughts on that from our panel?
You can send me a question and I can help you with Dell how to get off of mainframe. So, but it is, honestly, it was a 30-year journey at Dell before we were able to eliminate our last. And of course, and I have the advantage to work for a company that, manufacture the hardware to replace that. But for companies that, there are not, these are big investments, and this is where back to shifting as a service and consumption, and so many of this infrastructure don't require the big capex investments that we grew up, in the past. And now a lot of these things could be OpEx and consume. So that's going to be the shift, trying to replace them versus like how you really think about different ways of consuming or getting that type of services is where the world is shifting a lot.
Right. No, and that's key what you just said, because in my environment and I've been working with customers from the Fortune 100 to the 500 to the 2000. Most of those organizations cannot move to the cloud right away. There's millions and millions of data stored in their mainframes that's still being used. So that's where we have this hybrid, environment where we're going to continue to use some of that on-premise hardware, and then obviously, piece by piece, and the things that make sense will continue to move into the cloud. Whether everything is going to the cloud in the future, maybe, could be. But there's a big expense, and when it comes to the financials, so the economies of scale, then we have to consider, hey, look, all my investment that I have done on this mainframe, what am I going to do with it now, right? And I think that hybrid environment that you're going to continue to see, you're going to continue to see it for the next decade.
Absolutely, yeah. And when we think about the cloud, I think a lot of people also default to public. No, your own private cloud, your public cloud, and how we all kind of like design that perfect, workload balance between them based on the data sensitivity that we need to design for.
Yeah, I'd just say that there's two things that are increasing, right? One is the tooling to move applications and functionality off the mainframe onto the cloud or onto other environments is rapidly increasing, right? So that's causing pressure. And then it's a financial thing, right? That mainframes aren't cheap, but they do run a lot of critical core functions, right? So those trends are coming together, and I think it is gonna. I think if I was predicting, I'd say it's gonna rapidly move off over the next five years. You're gonna see more of it moving off onto the cloud and other platforms.
We did a funeral too for the last mainframe.
Man, I don't know if we're gonna last that long.
It was like a very interesting
Somebody's
event
gonna hide it.
that,
Yeah, they'll hide it, they'll hug it. I'm sure it'll be around for a while.
Oh yeah, we had some of those, yeah.
Okay, our next question is on skill building and on change. So as all this technology change happens, what recommendations does the panel have for how our Latinx and Hispanic community need to skill up for the demands of cybersecurity threats we are facing? and just technology in general. What are your recommendations? Where to get a training path? Where can you find skills? What skills are most important, et cetera? So I'll hand it to you all. Who wants to
Carlos,
take
you're
that
going to answer the
first?
security one, but I just going to start before Carlos and David jump in. The fact that recognizing that we always need to be students is number one, because that is the reality of our professions. You know, technology is changing so fast, and being able to create, you know, as leaders, you know, that type of environment internally to your employees. You know, there's so many educational programs that the company sponsor, but it's just recognizing and understanding you need to be a student always, and you need to prioritize that for yourself, because otherwise, you know, the technology is moving too much faster, and there's more than ever that I see our leaders talking about the workforce reskill right now.
Yeah, I mean, I would say high tech, right, has, if you look at all the content, all the leaders that we have within this organization, and you go back and all the presentation, there's a lot of phenomenal expertise, content, trainings that one can access, right? I think so. That's one thought. I agree totally with what Marieli said. I mean, I think learning is it's lifelong, and it goes back to that information question before, right? Because and not only is there more content, but you also got to kind of keep learning to stay up. So it's a tricky environment, but it also goes to the prioritization. So
and the pandemic gave us so much more tools and capabilities to do this in a much easier way. So that's there's no excuse, I have to say, for reskilling and educating, keeping yourself, you know, educated.
We're going to continue learning. That we're going to continue building on the skills because as technology evolves, it's the same thing that happens with us, right? I always compare technology with medicine, right? There's always going to be a virus. There's always going to be something that is going to come out, and you need to train for that. So you know the foundation is there, but every year, every 3 years, 4 years, you're going to continue on to learn the skills, continue to polish those skills, and build it to a way that you know it's just a way of life.
Thank you. It's really good guidance from you all to always be learning. So let's move to I think we have time for one more question. And I think this one we can be kind of brief on. So we'll see who wants to take it. And it's on blockchain. So blockchain, more specifically Bitcoin, has been very visible in the last few months. How do you see blockchain influencing the creation of new business models and business value, short-term, long-term, et cetera?
I think the security guy should take this one, Carlos. It's a new world over there.
Oh yeah, well, thank you very much. It's a process right now that we're all going through. I think that whether it is in regards to the decentralization, financing, you know, from a financial standpoint, or the supply chain, it's just a new way of exchanging value, right? Are we ready for now? Yes or no? Most likely, you know, there's a lot of things, not only from a process standpoint, but also from a security standpoint. I mean, and we see what happened over the last couple of weeks, right? So I think that until we don't define it, until we don't really get a grip on how we manage those things, how do we protect those environments, then, you know, it's going to continue on. So, you know, I don't have a straight answer, just like maybe you guys wanted it, but where we are today, that's where we see it growing.
yeah, I mean, I think it's an exciting space. I'm a big fan of it. This whole multi-party and blockchain, right? It's kind of just the underlying technology. Then whether it's in the finance space where you see all the crypto and the explosion in crypto and all the things that are happening there. But then on top of that, you're having applications, right? Or what are the applications? So you're seeing this explosion in NFTs, or what they're calling non-fungible tokens, and what you can do there. But you have other applications beyond that. You know, Jorge's in the supply chain space, what you can do in supply chain, what you can do with identities, what you can do with health records, what you can do with a lot of different applications that on top of that are creating a whole level of innovation, competition, new business models, disruption that's going to occur. But it's important for us as high-tech leaders, right, to just be aware of that, understand where these are going, where they're happening, and position ourselves and make sure we're educated to help our companies win and win and better compete in this environment.
Okay, well, very good. Carlos, David, Marieli, I want to thank you for joining us today and sharing. Thank you to the audience for joining and for your questions. And with that, let's transition back to the next session. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. I was really excited to join you today.
Thank you.
Well, things are different these days, but we're figuring it out. We're doing school online now, learning a lot. Come in. Finding cool stuff to watch. Dad's got some new workout buddies. And I still get to spend time with you.
Okay, now we're gonna put the sugar.
The Emerging Executives Program has one goal in mind: to keep growing our leaders in the Hispanic community. We recognize that everyone's professional journey is a bit different, but with the help of a holistic methodology, curated content, and meaningful interactions with a powerful network of mentors, fellows are able to take their careers to new heights.
For me, the HITECH EEP program was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me to connect with other Hispanic and Latino leaders in the technology industry. I now have access to a community of leaders outside my organization that I can call anytime.
The EEP program is the best leadership development program I ever participated in because they focus on me. They help me identify and further develop my own skills at my own time. It also connected me to a powerful network of Hispanic technology executives across many industries.
It led me to have an amazing promotion at work, leading and learning and applying a lot of the key things that I learned on the program. One of the most valuable aspects of this is the people that you meet. We advise each other, we advocate for each other. It's essential to continue to elevate the talent that we have in our Hispanic community.
We are HITECH Familia.